Hey guys, before the video starts, I do have this one little quick announcement I'd like to do before the video starts. So a few months ago, I released a horror game by the name of MORTIS, which is essentially a Yoshi horror fan game based on a very old Yoshi horror fan game that was released like 10 years ago or something like that. It's a very old game, but I decided to make my own little twist here and there to make the game a little more unique and, you know, not just a copy of the old game. I think a few people don't know about this game is that it was actually released for a game jam called Luigi Kid EXE Challenge, which is essentially a game jam focused on making horror games of very popular IPs like Mario, Kirby, Sonic, specifically Sonic. And just recently the competition just released their top 10 best games. Technically there's 12 because there has been a tie with a few games apparently. And your boy was able to get to top 10 and I think that was pretty awesome. And the competition is now essentially going to the step 2, as I like to call, where now the community is gathering together to vote for the best games. And the game with most votes will basically get a few extra points to then decide which one of the games in the competition ended up being the best one. And because of that, I am leaving in the description a link for you guys to help out with these votes. I could just go ahead and tell you guys to vote for my game, which if you are going to just do this for me, I would be really thankful. But I also really want to invite you guys to play my game if you haven't already. And if you really ended up enjoying the game, then voting for my game is also highly appreciated. It will really mean the world to me as somebody who's been really trying to get into the game development area. It's a dream that I'm still not giving up on, and I'm still trying my very best to get in there. But I am also inviting you to also play the other contestant games if you really enjoyed mine, because I'm not even gonna lie, there's some really cool games in there as well, and I think the 12 games in the list are really good to check it out. So if you enjoyed this sort of core content and you're looking for something new, I really recommend checking all these games if you haven't already. But then again, if you just want to go in there and vote for my game to help me out, I still highly appreciate it. I'm not going to force anybody to play my game because I do know this sort of content is not for everybody, mainly the EXE content. So yeah, that's all I really wanted to say. Just thank you for your time if you check it out, and thank you for your help if you voted for my game. And now return to the tier list video, which, spoiler alert, is a complete headache. Just another quick note before this video starts. I actually somehow managed to get a cut in my finger. And I'm not even sure how I managed to do that, but my finger is now bleeding. It's this guy's fault right here. He somehow knows what I'm doing here. Anyway, hi guys, welcome to another Grand Chase video. And today we're gonna be doing something that I know it has been very requested by one person, maybe two actually. I've been meaning to do for a few months, but I kind of got a little carried away with some stuff. But now I actually got a proper time to sit down and do a tier list of Grand Chase. After the Awakening update, a lot of these characters change so much that I think we doing a tier list just to kind of see where we are now. It's very much appreciated. I know there's a few people that have already made a tier list about the game, but the difference is that these people made a tier list of when it comes to like end game content, because there are some characters that do better than others. When it comes to my tier list, I really want to do a tier list that just basically just revolve around how I feel about playing a character, whether I enjoy playing with them, whether I think they're pretty good or bad. It's just basically my opinion, which I think it's what tier lists are supposed to be, right? They're supposed to be opinions, not overall facts. But if we're gonna talk about like actual facts, there is actually already a tier list, and I'm pretty sure it kind of looks like this. This could kind of be a little bit outdated, but as far as I noticed, this is basically where we are right now. And because of this, I also feel like this tier list in itself isn't just gonna cut it, because I could just go ahead and just say, oh, I really like Elesis, I think she's a nice character, like I basically did with my old tier list video. Like I swear all I did there was just say this character is good, has good damage, good versatility, S tier. So for this video, what I'm gonna be doing instead is actually use the alignment chart, and I think using the chart is a little bit better to visualize than if I were to just say, oh, this character is good. It would probably get a little bit chaotic afterwards, but this is kind of how I want to do. So yeah, we're probably just gonna go with this one. Maybe we can use like the tier list just to kind of like get an idea of overall thoughts, but for now I really just want to use this, which for those who don't know what the alignment tier looks like, essentially, like as you can see right here, we have 4 different areas. Essentially, depending where I put the character on, it kind of defines how I feel about that specific character. For Elesis, for example, if I think she's like, I don't know, an easy character to use and a strong character, all I have to put her is like over here to say that she's easy to use and strong. If I think, for instance, she's like hard to use and very weak, all I can just do is just put her right here and boom, I'm basically saying she's hard to use and a weird character. And if I think a character is like middle, all I just do is put them in the middle, which basically just mean I don't think she's hard to use or easy to use, or neither do I think they're strong or weak. I feel like this is going to be a little bit of a headache afterwards, but we'll see where we go from here. Maybe I switch it back to the other one, but for now I really just want to do like this because I think this works the best. With that being said, if you enjoyed this video already and like to see more Grand Chase in the future, you're more than welcome to leave a like, comment, subscribe, because we do Grand Chase content here at least once a week. And just a reminder that this is my tier list. This is how I just normally overall feel with these characters. Whatever you see here, just please remember that this is just my opinion. It doesn't really mean as a fact that some characters are better than others. It just means how I feel with these characters. So with that being said, let's just jump right in, and with the first character, and it's my main character, Elesis. I'm trying to actually think what she got for the Awakening update, because it's been a while. And I don't really quite remember what she got. The funny thing about Elesis, I actually like to call her the Ryu of the game, because she was a character that was like not the busted character, but not the weakest character in the game. She could get like the job done. It was like basically like first player's pick. The funny thing is now I think with Elesis is like she's still Ryu, but she's like boosted by like maybe 5 times. Definitely, I really think that the 4th job is like her best job out of the entire list. Even though I do also think that the other jobs still also can do a good job as well. Like first job, unfortunately, I would say like it's not as good as it used to be before, because a few frames change here and there, and even some skill delay like strategies are no longer possible with her because these frames has been like move a little bit with her. But I still think first job Elesis can also pull off really good results as well, specifically how she also has taunt. Second job I still think is like possibly the second best one that she has, because it's so much flexible, does so much damage, and now has a very good mobility. And third job I still think is the all reliable, even though I don't really remember anything that it got for this Awakening update. Overall, if we're gonna be honest, it doesn't really matter what job you play with. I still really think Elesis is a strong character, and like honestly like a really easy character to use. Like you can really just get the hang of it like pretty quickly the more you play with her. I'm gonna put her like over here. I think she's really strong. I'm actually just gonna put her maybe over here. She is very much like a Unga Boonga character. You just go in for the character and then just press Z and do skills. It's very straight to the point for Elesis. She's a really good one, specifically nowadays. Alright, so moving on to Lire. Lire is actually kind of a tricky little pony for me specifically to talk about. Lire is a character that I personally also really enjoy playing with. She's a character with very good damage output. Second job, I still think it's like the most devastating of the jobs that she has. This thing can just like destroy almost everything. Like if you just need to do damage, you can just use her skills, which are pretty strong. If you need to recover MP, then you can do the little tornado in the air, which also serves as a very good like damage output. And definitely the second job is like the highlight of Lire for me. First job, I'm not 100% a fan of it, but I do know that it can be very useful for stuff like Void in some situations, as well as a third job, which as far as I noticed, not a lot of people are playing with it anymore, so I can only imagine that it's bad, at least in comparison to the other ones. But I still personally really enjoyed third job. And the 4th job, which used to be like one of the worst jobs in the game, is now actually so much better than used to be before. The few things that I can remember is that now her dash attack like goes through enemies, which sets up very nicely for back attacks. I think one of them was like Bloody Rain now got like a bigger range, but I think that could have been like before Awakening update. I really don't remember anymore. But the point really is 4th job now also got like a very good glow up with this. And if I really want to be honest, I think Elesis is like really easy character to play around with. I don't think Lire is that different. If anything, I would say she is stronger than Elesis. Unfortunately, I can't like put this higher than this. I already feel like I messed it up with this setup. Let's do it like this. I think she's slightly stronger than Elesis in some areas, but it also depends on what job you really are going for. So, but I will put Lire slightly not easier than Elesis. If we're going to consider like only second job because it is the best job of hers, then yes, I will put her at easy to use, because second job is kind of a like no brain sort of job. You just do tornado in the air and that's it. But I'm also considering like first job, third job, 4th job as well, which they kind of are a little bit more trickier to use than only second job. So because of that, I will put her over here, because the only thing with Elesis, I would say like all 4 jobs I think is very easy to get the hang of it, so it's not that bad to learn Elesis. But with Lire is a little bit tricky. If anything, I could put her over here, but for fairness, I suppose I'll put her like slightly tougher than Elesis, a little higher than Elesis, because I do think Lire is stronger than Elesis, but I suppose slightly a little more difficult to use. I feel like this entire area is going to be filled with people. It's gonna get it's got to be a headache afterwards, man. I should have gone with the old method. Anyway, moving on with Arme. Arme is a little bit of a difficult character because I actually don't play with her too much. Like nowadays, I only play with her on Land of Judgment. That's about it. I don't really think Arme is that bad. As far as I remember, I don't think her Awakening update was like the worst of the list, because I don't think she really got anything. I think the fast dash is already good, but when we compare it to like what Lire and Decanee got, I think now Arme's like didn't feel all that much, you know? Like Lire and Decanee got like essentially like if you hold a dash, they now dash forward. Arme doesn't really have that, and it's kind of just a little weird that she didn't got that. or at least afterwards, because they did buff a few characters here and there and change some things, but Arme specifically did not got this, and it's very difficult for her mobility. You can go through enemies, you can go to projectiles and attack, which makes it a very good dodge option. But mobility is a little bit complicated even with these options to like avoid attacks. But the one thing I do think it compensates is definitely her gameplay. All 4 jobs I would say with Arme nowadays are pretty fun. First job I would say it's possibly like the second best one because they have like good options for offensive and defense. It can debuff enemies with either attack or defense. It can heal people, it can give shields, and also can compensate with like very good damage for all her skills. So she can kind of like cover a lot of ground even when it comes to like being the girl that like destroy things or the girl that helps the team. Second job as well, I think didn't really receive too much in this Awakening update, which is really unfortunate because it is one of my personal favorite jobs for Arme. Very good support wise, I would say. Free shields and like free healing is really good, but the one downside with it is that it doesn't really have the firepower. Like everything else, like her third skill or even like fourth skill, it's like pretty weak in comparison to some of the other ones, so kind of a letdown. Third job, it's still like the awkward, weird one. The only people I see using it is the people that spam third skill with it, which is just really funny. It used to be funny enough, one of the best jobs of the game, but unfortunately now it's kind of like whatever. And the fourth job, I think it's just like an upgraded version of the first job. It's arguably, I would say, is like the best one of the 4. Great skills, great damage, very busted fourth skill as well. It's a really good job to play with. I think Arme isn't an easy character to use, mainly because of her mobility. She can be a very tricky character to get the hang of it. Mobility sometimes can define a character, and Arme really falls in this category. I really think she's a strong character. I wouldn't say she's like the hardest character in the game. She's not a character like Elesis and Lire where you can just like turn your brain off and just do skills. With Arme, I think like you do actually need to think what you need to do and what's the best thing to do, which is a good thing because to me I think with Arme it always pays off because she does have a very good DPS output, and even if you're not there for DPS, her support also can come in very clutch. When you understand her and get the hang of it, specifically of her mobility and dashing, I think it does pay off a lot. But because of second and third job, I would put her actually slightly... I'm gonna leave it over here because, like I said, even if second job doesn't have a good damage output, the support that it can bring is very helpful. And the third job also kind of has some support here and there, but I don't think it's as good. But at least it has like an AoE on third skill and fourth job, which is really powerful as far as I noticed. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it over here. I don't think she is like a bad character. So right here. Moving on to moving on to Las. Before the Awakening update, I really didn't like playing with Las, and after the Awakening update, I will say that I did got better at playing with Las, but I still don't know how to play with a character. Arguably, I would say the best job for him is first job. I mean, it's the most flexible of the list. It just has like a lot of options to either attack in the distance or attack up close and personal. Second job got like a massive update as far as I notice. I still don't really see people play with it. I only played with it also like a few times just to see how it was doing now. And for what I played, I also really kind of enjoy it. It's a little tricky, but I still think it did got like a good update. Third job, I don't really feel like it changed that much. Maybe it changed like some hitbox changes and how some other things worked, but like other than that, I think it's like basically the exact same thing. And then fourth job, which I think is like the second strongest of his entire kit. It also got like a good buff on the Awakening update. He can now like hurt people with his dash, and he also goes through enemies, which is pretty nice. Good setup for back attacks, which for Last I think is a very good thing to get. The dodge that his fourth skill had also is now a lot easier to pull it off, I think, from what I remember. I don't remember if that was like a stuff from the Awakening update or the character balancement. It's gonna be a little bit wild. I don't really remember, but it's now a lot more easier to dodge with him, which even with those things, I really do kind of enjoy playing with Last now, but he's kind of a tricky pony for me. Like, I don't think he's that easy to use. If anything, I think of the entire MP characters, I would say he's like the hardest one to use. Will I call him like the hardest character to use because of this? I don't think so. But here's the thing, even if I do think he's like the hardest, I really never feel like my Last do damage. Like, my Last is at like 430k I think by the time this recording, and 400k is able to do a lot, specifically like Siege of Taroka, Temple of Time, Explosion of Konat, and even there I feel like sometimes he just kind of lacks damage. I'm not sure it's because I usually used fourth job, and fourth job is like a little slow. Tough call, man. He definitely got some really cool, interesting like things in his Awakening update, which makes him a little bit more of a fun character for me to play with. and makes him a lot easier as well. Like before he was like an annoyance, like my fingers hurt like every time I play with this character. Like I'm gonna just go in my opinion here, the way I play with him. I think he's like a weak heart character. Like every time I do stuff with him, I never feel like it does pay off. Sometimes even the 4th skill I feel like doesn't really do that much for me. Maybe except for the 4th job, which it's arguably I would say like one of the best ones to use because it's a quick slash with a lot of damage. As well as the new 4th skill. Other than that, I don't know. I really don't enjoy playing with him still. I do feel like there's some things here and there that needs to be adjusted, like make it easier to recover MP. Unless there is a way to do that, which I don't know, which is possible because I don't really know much about Last still. I'm still learning a little bit with him. I'm gonna leave it here for now. I think there's some things here and there with him that still needs to be like adjusted. He's a little hard to use and I feel like he's a little weak. Moving on with Ryan, I don't really need to say anything. He's like the easiest character in the game. Honestly, to me, he's like baby's first character. The one thing that really changed a lot for Ryan is his transformations. Like every transformation now got hyper armor, and if you're playing like through like 1st job, 2nd job, and 3rd job, you basically have like 30-second hyper armor into your disposal. If you transform into Magnus, which he doesn't have any time limit, it's basically over because when you transform into Magnus, you just have free hyper armor forever. Like it just makes him so good to farm for basically everything that doesn't have a time limit. The tower of extension with Ryan is just as simple as 1, 2, 3, and he's also immune to like Gadozin's one shot. So you are able to just walk that up for free. Because he has this hyper armor, I think that makes him like the easiest character to use. However, if we are going to ignore the fact of the transformations, I still think Ryan is like not that bad of a character. I would even say like untransformed Ryan is just as fun as transformed Ryan. Because very similar to Arme, he does have options for both offensive and support to other players. He can recover HP and MP with his totems, which is something that every Ryan has. And if you play with 1st job, you can also like revive allies, which can be very useful for stuff like Tower of Extinction or even like Stage 4 or Void. But untransformed Ryan, I still think he can like pull up a punch when necessary, as well as supporting. So yeah, but essentially like untransformed Ryan is like a more physical sort of version of Arme, a very up close personal character that can throw support when necessary. But transformed Ryan is like a beast on its own. Dare I even say he's like a pretty strong character as well. But the one reason I'm not putting them like about the same area as Elesis and Lire is because not all jobs from Ryan I would say is like pretty strong. Like the best one I think is like 3rd job. As far as I noticed, it does have like a pretty good damage output for his skills, as well as gameplay wise. As I heard, it's like pretty insane what this job can do. I play a lot with 4th job, which I also don't really think is that bad nowadays. It's not the craziest stuff, but you can still pull off some pretty good stuff with it. 1st job is pretty good to mostly just support, and the HP that he can get from some of his skills I also think can make him like a very difficult character to kill, as well as I mentioned, the revive, which is also come in handy. Ryan can also give like an attack boost with one of his 3rd skills, which I think is pretty nice. And then 2nd job, arguably I would say is like one of the weakest one, even though it's like one of my favorite ones. But even then, like I don't think it's that bad. Maybe damage output is a little inferior, but even then, like on its own, I think it can be like a pretty good job. It's still one of my favorite jobs to play with Ryan because I think it's pretty good. I'm gonna put him in here. I think he's a strong character, but not as strong as Elesis and Lire. Hyper armor just make him like a no-brainer sort of character. It's pretty funny. Moving on with Ronan. This one is a little bit unfair for me to even talk about. Because if you know me in this channel, you know that my Ronan is still level 1. If you'd like to know more why, you can obviously just check his showcase video. I would explain here, but it's not really the point of this video. It's mostly just to make like a tier list. So I'm gonna have to go with what I play with him the one time and what I've seen people play with him. Because believe me or not many people are like playing with Ronan anymore. It's actually kind of weird. My personal opinion is I think Ronan is weak. Okay, sorry, I had to say it because it's level 1. Not a bad character. First job can like buff allies attack up to 5 times, which can come really handy, specifically for stuff with like Void. It also can do like insane damage, specifically with his 3rd skill, but the other ones can also take a punch if necessary. Second job is kind of a more offensive version of the first job. 3rd job is like the support version of it. It can make people invincible for 10 seconds, I think. I don't remember how much it has. But it also, like, every attack now has hyper armor for a few frames, which I think is hilarious for him. At least every time he attacks with a shield is what I remember. 3rd job, I think, is, like, the best one to, like, help. It does good damage, and it can also, like, support people, and I think that's pretty nice. Although 4th job is arguably, like, the strongest one that I've seen so far. Every single person used this, and there's a reason why. It's because this job is, like, a killing machine for the most part. Ronan has been, like, one of the strongest characters for a long time in this game. He's still, personally, personally, I would say he's like one of the kings of this game because he can basically do anything on his own, and he can also protect people when necessary, and if you're also running the right jobs for it. And I'll actually put him about over here. Actually, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna separate Lire, and then I'm gonna put Ronan right here. I just even compare, like, I think all 4 jobs from Ronan is a little faster and easier to learn than Lire's. I still don't think he's like that easy though. I'm gonna put him like over here. I think he's a strong character, but something along over here I think he should do just fine. Here you go. You two are gonna be over here. He also has hyper armor now that I think about it. His aerodrome mode of all 4 jobs now brings hyper armor, and that can bring him much more survivability than Lire has. And even I forgot that even Elesis has this as well. But even then I don't think this will like change too much. If anything, I can just put him like over here now because of it. He's slightly better. Actually here. No, what I'm gonna do is just here. I think because of the fact that every job has hyper armor, it makes Ronan a slightly easier character to get the hang of it. It's still one of the best characters because of it too. Alright, moving on to Amy. First support here. Being able to projectiles twice with every job I think is hilarious. And here's actually one thing that I can talk about because the quick attack speed that all jobs and characters got, I think for Amy, it did like benefited her a lot. Like 4th job before, like it was so slow you couldn't properly like do the combo correctly because sometimes it will just drop or it would just not register at all because it was that slow. And now after the Awakening update, like stuff like 4th job can now just hit so much faster and more fluently as well that it just feels so good to attack with these jobs now, as well as the first job. Like the first job, she can kind of like just loop infinitely into a combo, and it just feels so satisfying to do that. It always just feels nice. It doesn't mean anything like at endgame, but I can assure you like it does feel really good. I think first job still is one of the best ones for like offensive and defense. For support, she can like boost attack, she can create shields. First job has this really weird questionable random buff or debuff that she has, which is the funniest thing ever to just troll people with. Like at one point you can get like full MP, the other time you just lost all your MP, and then seeing everybody freaking out about it is just so funny. I never seen like a person use this before, which kind of is unfortunate, although I do understand. But and for the offensive, the first job has like some pretty good options as well. I would say it's the best ones, but it can like break a leg when necessary. Second job has arguably the best support that you can give, which is basically just MP recovery for 10 seconds, I think. I don't remember how much it is, but it does have a good time. And for offensive, I do also really enjoy playing with second job. Second job can have like some very good combos and pretty good damage as well from what I noticed. It's personally one of my favorite jobs, but I can't use it because at the moment I don't have a good second job. Third job, I don't think like it got like anything special from what I remember. It still feels about the same thing. And skills wise, I think it's not all that bad. I think third job is more focused on doing damage, but even on that matter, I can't really tell if it's like better than some of the other jobs. And then fourth job is the best one like in the terms of balancement as well. It's definitely like an upgraded version of the first job, except it doesn't really have like an attack boost like this first job has, which can kind of draws out a little bit. However, it can combo very well with the first job because the fourth skill of the first job can bring like, how much is it? It's like 5 debuffs if all attacks land on the enemy, which one of them do include like defense reduction, which can also come pretty well if you then switch to first job and then are able to do like an attack boost. I can kind of say with like confidence that I think nowadays Amy is a fun character. She can be a little bit weak on some situations, but she can always compensate with like buffs and that she can pull off with the team. I think Amy is like, she is easy to use to me. I think she is slightly in the weak zone because when it comes to like damage, there's only a few skills that I can think of that it's like pretty good, because I don't think Amy is like the strongest character, but she's far from me like any like a weak character that like doesn't do anything. I'm gonna put her over here, but I don't think she's like strong or weak. I think she's like a little bit in the perfect balance of things. I would actually argue that sometimes doing buffs can be a little bit difficult because you do need to be close to other people, and sometimes depending on the people, these people will never stay put, and because of that it can be a little difficult to actually pull off the buffs. Because of that, actually I'm just gonna put her probably over here, lower it down a little bit. Jin! When people talk about Jin, I think a lot of people only talk about his fourth job. And granted, his fourth job is the best one on the list, and still arguably I would say he's one of the strongest one in the game because of that goddamn stupid fourth skill. But if we are going to consider like Jin as the full package, I would say he's like somewhere over here personally. Actually, no, I'm going to put him like over here, I would say. or even here, actually. You know what, no, I'm actually just lying. I'm gonna put him actually over here. Only because of his second and third jobs, mostly. Like, first job I think is okay. I think it's like one of the second best jobs that he has, just because I think it's flexible, it can do damage when necessary, and it's overall a fun job as well to play with. I don't need to talk about fourth job. I already mentioned how it's like incredibly busted. Even without fourth skill though, it is like, I would arguably that it's like one of the best ones in the game. But second and third job is kind of what really drags me down for this character. Second job, who is my favorite job of his, it's kind of sucked. So is third job if I remember, but the only difference, I think third job still has a little bit of a value. You can run that specifically for Abyssal Path, but the second job though is like basically a kick in the nuts. It is one of my favorites, but it's also like one of the most trashiest jobs he has. Like, his third skill is so long that enemies can just walk past it and you can miss like a bunch of damage. His fourth skill is like, so what the fuck, dude. It can be very good with stuff like Void Devour, but it doesn't do that much damage, and that's just kind of like, how? But to compensate it, I really do think that the combo attacks from second job, it's like a little bit more entertaining. I don't know, I just personally really enjoy doing the things that the second job can do. So yeah, like, even if I could just put him at the strongest because of the fourth job, I do need to keep it a little bit balanced like I did with Lire. And as a whole package for Jin, the only good thing he has is fourth job, and the rest is like okay or second job. Like Ronan and Elesis, for example, like, it doesn't really matter what job I play with these characters, I feel like I am able to do just fine. With Jin's kind of like the same problem I have with Lire. Only a few jobs work out for this character, and that's really the one thing I'm actually just putting him lower than Lire, because every other job with her, I feel like he can pull off the damage, even if you're not like the greatest thing. With Jin, I don't really feel like it's the same, right? Like I said, I can just run second job and it will not do as much damage or perform better than, I would say, like first job or fourth job. Hell, I'll even say like maybe third job. So yeah, maybe if it was a little more viable, I can put it over here, but I'll actually put him like right over here in the middle of strong. If we consider fourth job, like I said, yes, it's up here, but I'm not. So I'm gonna put him like, maybe actually here, I'll put him in the same height as Ryan, because I still think he's a good character. It's just sometimes, depending on the job, he cannot be a good character at all. Moving on to Sieghart. Even if a lot of people say he's a weak character, I still really enjoy playing with Sieghart. He's a fun character to play with. First job, specifically after the Awakening update, he became like so fast, it almost kind of hurts my head every time I play with it. He can be like all over the place and nowhere at the same time. It's really funny. His skills also can do like a pretty good chunk of damage, which is pretty nice. Second job is mostly just focused for stuff like Burkas and even like Void Taint. It can pack a punch as far as I remember, but after the Awakening update, I'm not 100% sure how that is doing right now. I rarely see people use second job. Third job nowadays with the Awakening update got like a very good buff because of the rage update that they did, where it like no longer drops when you're like doing skills. Now every job now can recover rage almost equally now, if I can remember, and that made like the third job recover so much of the rage bar. It's a very good option for those who don't like fourth job or just struggle to get the maximized damage of it. And then we have the fourth job, which is the one that people always go for because it is one of the best jobs, and I would agree that it is, even if I do enjoy third job a lot better. Doing GFs with this job now is slightly better. They opened the window for GF, and I think a lot of people were afraid that it was going to be such a easy thing to do now, but as far as I noticed and when I play with myself, it's not exactly the case, right? I never was able to do GFs in my life with this character, and after the update I was able to like do a lot more frequently, but it's still a little bit difficult for me to pull off like perfectly. Even like the dash GF, which is like one of the most useful ones to learn, I still even like fumble with it a little bit. It's still difficult to learn, but like it's not as difficult as it used to be before. And I personally don't really have anything against this, because even though it is like a good high risk high reward sort of mechanic, and fourth job I feel like it does kind of relies a little bit on GF sometimes. So if everybody's able to do that at least once or twice, like I can do like twice, I think it's already good enough for him. If I had to only consider fourth job, I would definitely put him at like maybe over here, really. I think fourth job alone makes him like a hard character to use. But now that I think that every job is now able to catch up with fourth job, I'll actually put him like at slightly easier. He's definitely easier than Amy to play with, personally. Which now that I think about it, I'm actually just gonna put Lire over here above Jin. I will put him at slightly easier. I do think he is... No, I don't think he's easier than Lire. I think he's just slightly in here, but I will put him at slightly weaker. As a matter of fact, I've actually just put him maybe even at the same height as Lass. Actually, I don't know. I'm actually just going to leave it like this. Sieghart is still a fun character to use. It's just kind of a shame that his damage output is a little weaker. Alright, so we're going to move on to Mari. One of the best characters in the game for a long time, and it still is one of the best characters in the game, I would say. She kind of has the same problem that I have with Jin, because if we don't consider just the 4th job, Mari is not personally as good as people say it is. It is good still though, don't get me wrong, but it's like, unfortunately every other job for Mari is not as high tier as 4th job is. 1st job I would say is like not anything bad. She does have the cannons which help out a lot with MP recovery, and it's like a really good way to just get MP recovery with those 2 cannons. And the damage with the skills, it's like, I wouldn't say it's like hard hitters. As far as I remember, every skill from 1st job is like okay at best. 2nd job got a massive update with the Awakening update. Basically it's now like a playable job. Bullets are now piercing through enemies. You can shoot as many times as you want. You can get trigger happy with it, which in the state the game is currently, I think it's what the job needed, and it makes me really happy that the job is what it is now. And the skills I would say are not all that bad. Like, might not optimize Berka's weapon from the 2nd job that I have. It didn't really pull me back or anything. It was kind of able to like carry me through stuff like Temple of Time at the very minimum. So I think if I had like an optimized 2nd job, it would be able to do the levels just fine. 3rd job, which I always say is kind of a support one, I also think is pretty good. I think when it comes to like damage output, it's a little worse than some of the other jobs, but it is able to like help out in some way. This job also has the cannons. She does have like a machine that I'm pretty sure recovers MP. She can also teleport, which for stuff like Void Devour can come in handy. I suppose as well for Void Taint. And then the 1st job, which I don't even think there's like introductions. She's very fast to build MP. She has 2 AoEs that is like busted. She can destroy Void Taint with ease and basically almost any other boss in the game, and still one of the strongest jobs we have in the game. And it's honestly why people always say to play Mari is because of the 1st job. I will say Mari, I say it's easier than Sieghart, but not as easy as Jin. I think, yeah, I'll put her like right where Lire is. Jesus, poor Lire. She's over here in the corner. Alright, thankfully we're going to speed up here because now we're moving to AP characters and they don't really have much to talk about. So moving on to Dio, a character that I remember a lot of people hating it because he was weak, but nowadays I think he's a character that grew up to me. Except for his hair, like I don't know what they're doing with him. They turned him into a K-pop user. Dio nowadays I think he is like a really fun character, specifically after the Awakening update. His command inputs I would say is something that really grew on me, if I can say. The command inputs really help him get the marbles, which is a very key factor to Dio. And specifically after the newest update where they included Infinity Cloister and they exchanged a little bit of the skill tree, Dio actually got hit a lot by the changes of the skill tree, where now a few things can be unlocked so much better than it used to be before, that Dio now has like so many doors that have been opened for him when it comes to like damage. Like, not even kidding, you can get almost everything from both paps, and it's almost a chef kiss. It would be a chef kiss if he could, but unfortunately he can't. But with these changes, like, he actually became like a pretty solid character with so many possibilities for damage. And I also really think he's like a fun character for an AP character. The one key thing for me with AP characters is the fact about how fast they can do skills as well. Because with AP characters, you can only rely on the hotkeys to do skills and stuff like this. And for Dio, I suppose it depends on what marble you're going with him. If you use the purple marble, which I don't remember the name of it, it does reduce MP consumption. So it means that when you activate that, you're able to throw like more 3rd skills frequently with Dio, and his 3rd skills can really hit like a truck sometimes, specifically on rush. On rush, I think, is like the strongest skill that he has nowadays. So that kind of helps him out to be a slightly easy character compared to some other characters, while also being like a good powerhouse when necessary. Dio is still feel like he has a little problems with his damage output specifically, and I think this is kind of the main thing with Dio, and it's the main reason why I'm putting him specifically at one of the hard to use characters. If you don't build him up correctly, which is common because there's just so much you actually need to think about for Dio, he can really fall off fast. But if you already know what works for Dio and what exactly you should be doing, we can kind of debate on putting him at slightly hard to use. But in my honest opinion, I will actually put him like over here. Although nowadays I would say he's a strong character. I wouldn't say he's strong as any of the characters up here, but I still think he's a very solid character to play with. He is a tough character to understand, but when you do understand him, I think he is like a good character and a pretty fun one too, I would say. Like the entire AP list, I would say Dio is like one of my favorite characters to play with. I do really have a lot of fun with this character, even if he can be a little bit tricky sometimes. Moving on to Zero, another character that got like insanely buff after the Awakening update. Zero is actually another character similar to Amy, where he benefited a lot from the attack speed buff that everyone got. Before, Zero was like an absolutely annoying slow character. Like every attack he did with Grand Arc, it was just so slow. Like it was so slow in fact that like people like Void could just like walk away and you were still doing like your third slash. It was that slow, dude. I really hate it. But now after the Awakening update, he feels faster. He feels slightly stronger, if I can be honest. I'm not really sure if they like enhanced like any stats or something like this, but I suppose because he now is faster, he feels stronger. And his commands inputs, I would say, is like personally like one of the best, considering how you can like customize them. Like Orchard, for example, you can choose if you want to absorb MP or HP, as well as the Devour, I think is the name of it. Switching stances with Grand Arc is now on your C key, which still feels a little bit weird for me, but I am getting a little bit used to it and it feels a lot more natural now. And I personally very much enjoy doing it with C now instead of XX, which used to be before. The highlight for Zero, I would definitely say, is his fourth skill. Like this fourth skill, it's so busted. They basically put like Elesis bravery, but they tune up by 100. This guy is like not only invincible, but he does a lot more damage. And I think his Zero having this, it's just really good to just mess around with it. Like the old fourth skill, unfortunately, wasn't really that good. So that like kind of becomes a good replacement for it. It's actually really funny because if we were doing this sort of list before the Awakening update, I would 100% put Zero in the hardest character to use. Before the Awakening update, Zero, he was like one of the hardest character to play in the game. But after the Awakening update, like this actually like reduced a lot. And I would even say he's like somewhere over here now. Kind of sucks because it's gonna block everybody, but I really want to put him like over here. He's like a really strong character now. Like he's not even kidding. Getting the hang of it is a little bit difficult, but when you do, like you have like a big killing machine. It's crazy to say considering how for the longest time Zero was like one of the weakest characters in the game. So I'm really glad that he just is where he is now. Moving on to Lei, another one of my favorite AP characters in the list because in my opinion, she's a very fun character to play. And if you consider like everybody else in the list, I think currently she's like the hardest character in the game. And the reason why is because of the command inputs that she got. That she had so many command inputs already. With X, you do the commands with Sebastian and Jeeves, and then the C key is left for the summoning. But now they decided to add a new command input where you press XX, and then with XX you are able to do stuff like Inspire, which covers AP a lot, Barrier, a Fireball that I don't remember the name of it. You know, these things are good. But because they added a new command input, I feel like with Lei, it's a kind of a weird juggle you have to go through depending on how you play Lei. And it's even more of a complicated juggle if you're playing with characters like Dio, who also has command inputs by just pressing X. And he does have a command input attack if you press X twice. So if you just press XX by accident, you do a command input and whoops, I didn't mean to do that. Well, that's a shame. But the one thing I can actually tell that is like a kind of a negative is her summonings. Her summonings in this Awakening update did not receive a single update at all. Like they've been completely ignored in the list. Well, that might not look like anything important, right? It's just the summonings. The summonings actually do kind of play an interesting role because they motivate you to summon these because at 4th job, if you summon somebody, you get like a random buff. Gargoyle, you get defense. With Haunt, you get either crit rate or crit damage, I don't remember. I think it's crit rate. Sebastian gives you attack, and Jeeves gives you HP recovery, which wouldn't be all that bad, but some of the transformations are just like extremely not durable. Sebastian and Halt is still like one of the most resistant ones, which is kind of weird because they're supposed to be like offensive sort of summonings. Jeeves can kind of also tank a little bit better, and I think of the entire list, I think he's the one that can tank the most outside of Sebastian, which is, I think, is pretty funny. But then we have stuff like Gargoyle, who is supposed to be the tank of the transformations, and he gets killed like in 4 hits. Not even kidding. On my showcase, I made sure to just use Gargoyle, and Gargoyle was dying on Void like every 2 or 4 hits. It was just really sad that they did not buff Gargoyle at all. For a transformation, that reminder has taunt and gives the player defense buff. So the fact he's supposed to be like a tank and he can't tank shit is honestly kind of funny. But to compensate on the summonings, Haunts and Sebastian, which is the dog, I'm not even sure if it's called Sebastian in English, it's called Sebastian in Portuguese, they are very good transformations. Haunt specifically because he can reduce attack and defense and he can also hit like a fucking truck. And Sebastian can also apply bleeding. He can do like very interesting damage on his own. And also as well, when you consider the buff that these two can do, you're basically getting free crit rate and attack attack boost, which with these two in the field is pretty nice. You can also like not have more than these two summonings at the same time, which it sucks, but I think it's understandable considering how if you have Jeeves and Sebastian on the field, it can be a little bit complicated with the command input. So on that area, I can understand why that's not a thing. And even without the transformations, I think Lei is a character that can like take care more of her own. Like you don't need the summonings to like do great damage or anything like this. Like Lei on her own already have the stuff necessary to the damage. Her skills can like cover a lot of good areas. Her old 4th skill I still think is one of the strongest one of the entire AP list, just because it lasts too long and you can hit multiple times, and it's really good one, specifically if you have stuff like Haunt on the field, and Haunt does defense reduction, as well as also they make her mobility a little bit faster. It does help her a lot with survivability, but in this tier list, I will say like in the entire list, unless I'm forgetting somebody here, she is definitely like the hardest character in this list. However, to compensate the difficulty, I think she is really strong. I would say actually she's as strong as Arme. If not, actually, I would say Arme is a little weaker, just because I think Lei has much more offensive, and the fact that Inspire also recovers AP very quickly to be noted as well. So I think in the offensive side of it, I think Lei can pull off a lot of damage. She's not the strongest character in the game, unfortunately. I mean, we do have Zero over here, but she's stronger in my heart. Alright, moving on to Rufus. Unironically, one of my least favorite AP characters in the game. Rufus was the first AP character to introduce us the command inputs. Essentially, he got the same thing that Uno has. If you press X, now you do basically a second combo, and if you hold C, you pull off a light machine gun for I think 5 or 7 seconds. I don't remember how much it was. And I think his skills as well are pretty good. I think they can do damage. They hit multiple times. Both 4 skills, I think they are pretty good. Although I think the new one still stands out the most because it can cover like a good amount of area and it does very good damage, specifically for big bosses. He does have everything that a good offensive character needs. And I would even debate that he can be easy. However, very different from what the other AP characters, he doesn't have a way to recover AP. Like what we mentioned with Dio, Dio has the marbles that reduce MP consumption, meaning he can pull off 3rd skills a lot more faster. Zero has Orchard and Devour, which if you set them up for AP recovery, they do recover quite a bit decently. Lei has Inspire, which can basically give her full AP bar in like 5 seconds. Rufus doesn't have any of this, and because of this, it kind of makes him like a tough character to learn. Because of the fact you're not being able to do skills more frequently with Rufus, because he doesn't have anything to help him get AP faster like the other characters, it really kind of makes the character very difficult to maximize his damage. And because of that alone, it's why I'm actually just gonna put him the lowest of the weak characters we have. It really just sucks because Rufus is a fun character, but because of these limitations, he kind of becomes a slightly hard character to play with. Now, actually here, I'm actually gonna put him right over here. He is about like the same difficulty as I would say like maybe Jin, actually. I think he's not a difficult character to learn, but the fact that he can't recover that MP as efficiently as these other characters, this is a factor that can kind of draw Rufus down very quickly. If you're not doing basically like a lot of double attacks to reduce that cooldown, you're not seeing any other way to get your best moves out. I could also debate that he could be hard because of this like limitation of AP, but overall I don't think Rufus is a difficult character. It's just a character who's like limited because of this like lack of AP recovery. Still a very fun character though. I really love playing with Rufus. Moving on to Rin. So because Rin has 2 different paths you can do, I actually separated into 2 different Rins. I'm actually just putting a pull right here. The negative Rin is going to be Dark Rin, and the normal Rin is going to be Light Rin. So we're gonna have to do these one at a time here. Actually, just gonna put you right over here in the meantime. This one is kind of a tough one. They basically buff up a lot of the transformation, but Rin itself didn't really receive that much to compensate it. She did got like command inputs that can kind of help her in some areas, but honestly, I think both Rins got like very bad command inputs. With Light Rin, I think the only one that is worth mentioning is the unlimited talisman use that you can do for like 10 seconds. And I suppose the other good thing is that she can bring shield for every ally, but like the other stuff that she can do is like high jump and a distraction that only works on PvP. And then for Dark Rin, her command inputs are the Bloody Wall, which can be useful for Tower of Extinction, but as far as I tested my own, that's about it. She has a teleporter that can heal her and make her invisible for 2 seconds, and the other one is a buff that basically just apply curse to enemies for 10 seconds, which I'm not sure how this is useful for PvE. If I can be honest, like of the entire list, I think Rin got the worst of the command inputs. It could definitely be a little bit better, and I feel like they could have created new stuff for her specifically. But even with these command inputs, I don't really think Rin is like a bad character. Specifically for nowadays, I think the transformations carry both of them. Some people are actually able to solo Infinity Cloister with just the transformations alone, which kind of goes to show how much of a good buff the transformations receive. Both transformations also got a Ryan treatment, where now the transformations are able to get hyper armor and use quick save, which for her specifically I think she needed. Specifically like Light Rin transformation. Like Light Rin transformation just has like such an awkward movement. It really feels unnatural. I did play with it a little bit for a few weeks, but I just could not get used to it at all. I just really did not like moving with Light Rin. It was just not fit my style and for what I like to do, so I personally didn't really enjoy that much for Light Rin. It's a kind of a hard character to learn. I'm not just considering Rin, I'm also considering her transformation. With that mobility alone, I really don't enjoy playing with it. But honestly, I would say that she's slightly weaker than Lass. I don't know, when I at least use like the skills and third skills, I feel like I either don't maximize it to the most, or I feel like it doesn't do that much damage when it hits. Granted, it could be because my Rin is currently one of the weakest characters I have. She's sitting at 326k, I believe, and I think the buffs that she can do, like, although I appreciate it, I don't think it can really help that much. I've actually put her at slightly harder and weaker than Lass. She can definitely pull up some good stuff though, but yeah, I think she is like a little bit more harder. I don't think that's that bad. Like, this is how I personally feel with this character anyway. If anything, no, I actually put it right here. I think she's as difficult as Dio, but a little bit weaker in comparison. And then we have Dark Rin, which in my opinion, I think the transformation for Dark Rin is much better than Light Rin, mainly because I think it does more damage and it feels a lot more easy to hit. Much when you consider that how she can also buff herself into an extra 50% attack. Offensive options, I think Dark Rin is much better, and I will put her at slightly stronger. I do think she is stronger than Light Rin, slightly stronger than Amy. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm actually gonna put like Amy a little down, and I'm gonna put Dark Rin light over here. This picture is cursed. I'm sorry, I didn't have any other way to indicate it. But yeah, I think that's how mostly I feel with Dark Rin, and also personally think that she is much fun, mostly just because of the gameplay. My hot take, considering how everybody says do Light Rin, meanwhile there's me saying do Dark Rin. That's why I said to not take my list too seriously, is because I have opinions like that it could definitely get people the fork and the torch. And I think this one's going to be one of these, because we're moving on to one of my second mains, Asin. Before the Awakening update, I always said that he would be like a very difficult character to use if you don't know how to mess around with his skill tree. Very similar problem to what Dio had. But now that after the Awakening update, they basically said, fuck it, pick everything from his skill tree and have fun. Unlocking everything from his skill tree, I think it was a massive play on him, and I think that's something he needed, because like I said, if you didn't know what to do with a character, you were basically screwed. The wrong setup for Asin can basically kill you, but now you are able to just do everything. And complete version of Asin, I think, is pretty fun as well, if I can be honest. He also has command inputs, but unfortunately, as far as I know, this is nothing that big. I think he has like the least in comparison to some of the other characters, because with down X you can do the water thing that reduces defense. I think if you press XX where CC, I don't remember which one it is, it can make you like invincible for 2 seconds. Choosing a direction for C will give you like the buff for the poses. Like if you do C4, you get an attack boost. If you do C back, you do defense. If you do C up, you get movement speed. So with his like full skill tree, I think he became such a much more flexible character. Specifically as well, when Asin on himself, I think he is like already like one hell of a flexible character. Nowadays, I think he is like pretty fast. You can kind of customize his stances to give you like more HP or more MP or counter, which the counter I still say is one of his biggest thing, which is kind of funny because sometimes the counter doesn't work every time, which is not the point of a counter. And he also has skills to kind of back him up. King's Wrath is still one of his best skills. Both fourth skills, I also think it's pretty good. The one problem I can definitely say for Asin specifically is his damage input is pretty low, and he doesn't really have that many options either, which really sucks. Like for third skills, for example, you only can use the bamboos or King's Wrath, and same goes for as well for the other skills. Sometimes some of them can be harder to use, and when you're able to hit them, the damage wasn't really like all that payoff, which is also why a lot of aces just basically run the exact same setup, because it's the setup that it just works for the character, and you can't really do anything other than that. So because of that, I really cannot put like Asin higher than this, but I think he's like somewhere close. And for difficulty, I would say he's slightly easier than these two, I would say. I'm actually just gonna put him actually over here, slightly more easier to play with than Amy. But honestly, I think I can just put him like maybe over here. If you don't do like the buffs and debuffs, I think he can kind of be a tough character. If anything, I can put him like maybe a little bit lower because of that. But when you know when to like reduce defense, enhance your own attack, and then do King's Wrath or any other like powerful skill that he has, it can be like a little bit complicated because sometimes his damage output can be like a challenge. I'll even say he's much fun to play with than Jin, even though he's miles away from it. But yeah, other than that, I really do enjoy playing with him. Slightly difficult because of his limitations. Speaking of limitations though, we're moving on to Lime, arguably one of my new favorite characters to play in the game. She basically almost feels like a new character. She got like a lot of new stuff, like new combos, new things to make her much more flexible. She can now swing that hammer so much faster now, which is just, whoever had that idea, give him a promotion. They also buffed the auras as far as I remember. Like you could go into a portal and go to the next stage to another and the aura will still be activated. New fourth skill also can increase attack. She also got 2 command inputs. You get Smash with X forward, which as far as I remember, it does have a little bit of hyper armor once active, and Whirlwind with X up, which is also funny because I think it has hyper armor, and even when you do a skill while doing Whirlwind, it will still be hitting the enemy, which gives you a little bit of extra MP with it. It's kind of a funny setup. Lime's Awakening skill is the only one that can heal everybody in the party, and I think that is not only fitting for Lime, it's also pretty goddamn good because as far as I tested myself, it's like a full health recovery. Where do I even put you? Like, I don't know, dude. She's just so much of a better character now. I have to put her over here. I will highly argue that she's one of the best characters in the game because of this, because she can heal, she can bring shields to people, she can do damage, she can revive people with her fourth skill, she can buff people with her fourth skill, she can heal people with Awakening skill. If the Lime is like locked the hell in as a support, there's nobody in the lobby dying. And even if they are not focusing on support, they're focusing probably on DPS. And even then, she shines so much better now with the DPS. It's so much better. Not only considering as well that now that I think about it, that she can recover MP with one of her auras, which also now the dash tech also has hyper armor while she's spinning the hammer. There's nothing for me here that is changing that fact. It's just so, it's funny for me. She's getting the Unga Bunga for me. Alright, moving on to Edel, another character that surprised me on the Awakening update, even though I don't remember anything that she got either. The one thing I can definitely remember is that her fling shot now went from a cooldown from 7 seconds to 2 seconds. It should have been 0, I still believe that should be a thing, but I suppose she did need time to reload the gun. Her basic attacks still feel much the same. It's still pretty solid. That was a character that also has a pretty good mobility. She can move around the area like pretty quickly with her maneuvers. I'm not gonna lie, this one is a little bit of a tough one because I don't know much about to talk about Edel. I mean, she can still do pretty decent damage with her combo as well as skills. Edel has like a good option range for skills. Her new fourth skill I also think is pretty good. She can also reduce defense with one of her techniques. Surprisingly enough, it did become a command input for her, which looking back at it honestly feel like it should have, but it's not. So yeah, it kind of feels a little bit empty after we just talk about Lime, but I think Edel, to be honest, is a character that's like pretty straight to the point. There isn't much for me to talk about the character. She's, in my way, I feel like she's very similar to Elesis, but she's weaker than all of these characters. She can definitely pull off some good values, and now that I think about it, I can probably just put her over here because she's not all that weak compared to somebody like Darkwind. But she can definitely struggle a little bit in some areas on her own. Like Void, Taint is definitely a level that she struggled with a lot by herself. Even though she does have the right tools, because of their low damage, I feel like she can kind of struggle a little bit. But I still think she can be like a pretty good character in the right hands. Moving on to Veigas, another character that I personally think got a massive update as well, mainly because of the way that now AP characters can reduce cooldown time when they do a double attack. And with Veigas, because now his attack style feels so much faster, and they also changed the critical double attack that he had into a 3 linear explosion. This also benefited him very well, other than also increasing his movement speed when he's dashing. Literally, I don't think anything changed for this character. And for being an AP character, it does make him a little bit difficult. They didn't really change anything with runes, which is kind of my main issue with Veigas. I still don't understand why one of the runes says you do more damage but you lose HP in return. I don't really see how that's a fair trade. I feel like if they could like update these runes to be a little bit more modern and to help him out a little bit more, I feel like it could be better, because I think every single Veigas player, they follow basically the exact same runes. Like there isn't much of a reason to do anything otherwise, specifically this one that like hurts you for every time you do a skill. But even with those things aside, Veigas is like one of the strongest AP characters we have. Stronger than Ray, which I will put her a little bit lower in the list. Personally speaking, I think he's easy, which I'm actually, now that I think about it, I'm actually going to put Asin somewhere actually over here. I'm gonna have to change this a little bit later, but the reason why I did this change is because Asin has like the mobility advantage that makes him a very difficult character to kill and to also set up like attacks and stuff like that. Like this is the main reason why I'm doing this, and I'll probably have to like readjust this a little better later because now think about that. And for Veigas, I don't think he does have the advantage of mobility. Like other than his dash that can go through enemies, he doesn't really have any other way to dodge attacks other than using skills and quick saves. So it kind of becomes a little bit difficult to keep him alive. As a matter of fact, I actually was going to put him over here. I think he can be a little hard to play around with, but he can just be like an insane broken character the majority of the time. Uno, best character in the game. This guy came out I think last year, and for a whole year this guy has been like a menace to everybody. I would even say he has like the biggest DPS output of the entire list of characters, just because he has so many options. The blood rain that he can do just has like a big range, and because it has a big range, it can do a lot of damage very quickly. He also has like something very similar to Elesis' second job, 4th skill. He can even heal himself if he wants to, or even reduce defense with one of his skills. And it's honestly like pretty easy to get the hang of like Uno. Like I would even say he's like over here alongside the easy gang. Like actually, I'm just actually gonna put him right here because Uno is basically like bloody Oonga Boonga, if I can be honest. I'm actually, the only reason I'm not putting him in max is because I want Lire to be in there, but yeah, I don't really have much to say about Uno. It's not that difficult, honestly, to learn with him. He's like, it's pretty easy to get the hang of it. And by like Silverland or something like this, when you're first playing with him, like you're basically just destroying everything. Because at that point, you get like a big range 3rd skill that it's like, just make this stuff so much easier to play with. So yeah, there's not much for me to talk about Uno. He's just that easy to play with. There's not even words to describe him. I think just me putting in there is already enough. And now we're moving on to the new characters. Well, quote unquote new characters, right? These are characters that have not been in Grand Chase, and they are like new in Classic. So we're gonna start off with Decanee. I think she's like a pretty easy character to get the hang of it. I think she is pretty strong. There's not much I can say of other than what I've said already with people like Uno. She does have a good variety of skills. She can get herself shields. One of them specifically can also heal you the more you hit the enemy. She can also has an option to give shields to allies, which is only for 2 seconds. She also has an AoE. Her 4th skill is also an AoE, the old one, the new one. I personally really enjoy much of the new one. I think the new one is a little bit of a weird 4th skill. And she also can get like a lot of buffs the more HP she has. I think if you have like her at above 70% HP, she gets like damage buffs. And she also has like a tank transformation. It basically works like Sieghart's Rage. And also with the Awakening update, they changed her double attack to be like a black void that does continuous damage to anybody who's inside. We do think that would increase your MP recovery for every hit, but as far as I remember and notice, it doesn't. It doesn't even enhance your MP, which understandable considering if it did, Decanee would just be like an MP machine. So I do understand the choice of not doing that. And I think her basic attack is already like recovers a little bit enough than normal. So I don't have any complaints about that personally. She's like a very in the middle, like beginner friendly sort of character. Like I think Decanee is like a pretty solid, easy to use, strong character. She doesn't really have anything, you know, to talk about. I think she's like the perfect, like easy to get the hang of a character. The same thing I can kind of say for AI, although I will say that she's a little bit stronger than Decanee. Both of these characters are kind of the same thing, really. The only difference with AI is that doing her stance moves, she does have hyper armor. Some of her 3rd skills are much more flexible, and they're mostly focused on one enemy instead of multiple, which Decanee do also have her own like one target enemy 3rd skills, but I don't feel like they do much more skill than AI has. AI can also reduce defense, which funny enough, her reduced defense attack can also do so much damage. And both of her 4th skills are insanely good for basically every situation. Because we're gonna compare with Decanee, for example. I think Decanee's 4th skill is only much more viable for like when you have multiple enemies, like in Abyssal Path. It's not a skill that like does multiple damage with just one enemy. But for AI, the old 4th skill, I feel like it was dedicated designed against bosses because it's a big beam that appears in front of her, and it even drags like some enemies next to her as well. So it also can be sometimes useful against multiple enemies as well, because it's also like vertical beam as well. And her new 4th skill is essentially like Rufus. It's already like great by default because it has a big range and every beam basically do a lot of great damage. I would even say that she's slightly easier than Decanee, but I don't know. I think she's like a little bit yeah, I think she's easier than Mari. This list right here is chaotic as hell, bro. What is the hell is going on over here? And lastly of the characters, Kallia. I love Kallia. Unironically, one of my favorite characters in the whole game, just because I love her gameplay. And it's the reason why I made her like one of my mains, because she is like pretty fun, right? The heat meter helps her do more damage. Most of her 3rd skills is like AoE focus, and if they're not AoE, they're like area focus, which can do like an insane amount of damage. She has 1 hit. She has AoE where she can also reduce defense. But the one thing I have a problem with Kallia is mostly her survivability. She does have a thing now with her Awakening update that when you press X while you're pressing the Z combo, she basically stops everything and she jumps forward, going through the enemy and then basically avoiding whatever attacks coming her way. But also, she's a character that oftentimes sacrifices her defense for more attack, basically allowing her to become a more high-risk, high-reward character. And granted, defense doesn't really matter all that much in this game because sometimes the enemies will just either like one-shot or have a time limit. And for Kallia, it is understandable why she gets this attack boost. But also, the defense thing can kind of sometimes mess around with her a lot because she is taking much more damage than other characters normally would in the game. Oh, but I can just not turn that off in the skill tree, right? Well, you mean you could, but you're also losing like 20% extra damage that she can do, which is extremely viable as well. So you're kind of doing like this very risky trade with Kallia most of the time. Even when she does have this attack boost, sometimes Kallia can be a weak character, believe me or not. But once you get like to stuff like Sieghart, Void, you can kind of understand the main problem with Kallia. Sometimes she can hit harder than characters like Decanee, maybe even Jin. But it's crazy because for a new character, her being like this weak is kind of a bizarre thing. The way you would do her more damage to make her like be a strong character is by activating her heat meter. But sometimes even with the heat meter, sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to pull off like good numbers. It's a good thing nowadays at least that the heat meter now stops whenever you use skills, comes up really in handy most of the time. It's just kind of a problem really because I still think even with that, Kallia still struggles a lot in the weak zone over here. I still think she's like pretty easy to use. She can carry stuff on her own, which honestly makes me want to put her right over here with Amy, which I think is kind of what I'm going to do actually. But I still love this character to bits, and just because I'm a little biased, I'm actually just going to put her a little bit above Darkwind, to be honest. I don't know, I just really love this character for what it is. It's really crazy for me to call her weak because even I don't think she's weak, but it's something you start to realize on stuff like when you do Void by yourself or even Tower of Extinction, can be a little bit of a difficult character to do damage on her own. It's really nuts. Okay, and I think that's basically my tier list. I did manage to do some little bit of a adjustment here to just kind of highlight a few characters a little better. So starting from right to left, we have Lei. She is the hardest character to use because there's so much juggling you can do with the command inputs, but it does compensate for being a very strong character. Second one we have here is Lightrin. I think she is hard to use, but ultimately I feel like most of her stuff doesn't feel that rewarding. She feels a little weak in some areas, but to be fair, Rightwind was not a character I enjoyed playing with the most, so please understand why I put her over here. Then we have Veigas at slightly hard to use but extremely strong. The only reason I have him as difficult is because it's a little difficult to dodge, as I mentioned with him before. It does compensate because he's a very strong character, so if you know how to play with him offensively, you don't even need to worry about that. Then we have Dio, kind of move him a little bit easy because I do think he has skills to at least help him out a little bit with his survivability, like Dark Sphere, I think that's the name of it, I don't remember. Then we have Mari, which I did put her right here, and the reason why I put her slightly hard to use is because all of her jobs also doesn't have anything like to help her to dodge most of the time, but even then I think she's like a very strong character, one of the strongest characters in the game. Then we have Laz over here, which I did move him a little bit. The reason why I move him over here is because I think his mobility kind of compensates and help him survive for the most part. His quick save is also like one of the longest one in the game, so it does help you survive for a few seconds and then rethink what you need to do very quickly, but I still think he's like a weak character overall. Then we got Amy. I only move it slightly just to visualize where she is. So I don't think she's like strong nor weak nowadays. I think she's like the perfect balance while also just being like a very easy character to use. It could go be like maybe over here actually, but we'll see. I've actually just for now I'm putting her like over here just to visualize. Then we have Arme, which I put her a little bit slightly over. Actually, I'm just going to put it like over here now that I think about it. Again, her mobility really makes it a little bit difficult to make her alive, which can sometimes kill the character quite often. But again, she does compensate with a high damage with skills and also a support with her first and second job. Moving on, then we have Darkwind, which I think she is very much better than Lightwind, which to be fair, I think that is the point of Darkwind. She is much better offensively. She can buff herself and her transformations is also pretty good, at least to me anyway. Then we have Lire, which I did move her slightly too easy to use. All her 4 skills are pretty easy to learn. It's just kind of a matter of getting used to the opposite of the second job, which is basically pretty easy. Then we have Decanee, which I don't really have much to say about her. I think I mentioned everything that she can. She's basically a very good, balanced, strong character. Not much to talk about her. I will Sieghart a little bit up because I am giving him the benefit of the doubt from what I have with his weakness as far as I hear. Mainly because I also think the third job is able to hit like really good recently. I haven't been able to do like really good damage with him. I'm fully on my own instinct and calling him like over here instead of like slightly down here. just because I don't think he's like all that weak. Then we have AI, which is basically a better version of Decanee in some ways and slightly much stronger. Then we have Asin. The more I think about it, I kind of feel like he's kind of an overall balanced character. Right? He doesn't really do much damage, but to compensate, he does have so many things that can help him keep himself alive, which I was kind of adjusting. Remember, he had like an emergency healing. Zero also has something like this, but I really didn't move him that much. And he can also do pretty good damage, which is why I keep him strong. And then we have Edel, which I also think she is pretty easy to use, but she doesn't highlight as much as some of the other characters. Then we have Rufus all the way down here. I do think that he is easy to play with, but unfortunately, most of his skills doesn't really feel like it pays off most of the time, which is really unfortunate. Then we have Zero all the way over here. I think he is kind of an easy character to mess around with nowadays, and very powerful as well, with the stances now being so much faster and easy to pull off. Then we have Elesis, which honestly, it doesn't really matter what like job you play with her. I think you are able to pull off a lot of damage very quickly and easily, and she also has like a hyper armor to help her keep herself alive for 8 seconds or something like that. Then I have Jin over here, which actually was slightly behind Elesis. The same things can be applied to Jin, even if second job I would say it's kind of the main exception. Fourth job just really carries this character for me. Mostly the reason why I see it here is because of the fourth job. If we're gonna consider like the other jobs, it wouldn't be like all that behind. I would say he probably would be like behind Asin. I still think they could basically help out a lot, maybe except second job, which is kind of unfortunate, but the other 2 jobs, other than fourth job, I wouldn't say they're that bad. Then we have Kallia, which is a great character, very simple to use. You learn her pretty quickly, but sometimes you can kind of lack damage. And then we have Ronan, which basically has the same things that I said for Elesis, although he does have a little bit more support options as well, which is why I'm putting him a little bit better and easy to use than Elesis. And then the Unga Boonga category over here, we have Uno, Lime, and Ryan. Not much for me to talk about Lime and Uno. They're basically like you pick them, you press stuff, and you win. And then Ryan, his transformations basically carry him, but even if you don't transform, I do think he is a very solid character. Untransformed Ryan, I'll probably put him like where Ronan is, because he playing with not transformed Ryan didn't really feel that much of a difference, but because transformation Ryan has like hyper armor, I am putting him like right over here, just because it just makes him like a very easy Unga Boonga character. And if you guys are gonna ask what this would look like in the tier list version, it would probably look like something like this. Very ironic for them putting Ronan at S tier, even though I don't play with him. So yeah, on that note, I think I'll leave the video here because I'm recording for 3 hours and this video was longer than it should have been. If you enjoyed this video and you would like to see more, you're more than welcome to leave a like, comment, subscribe, because we do Grand Chase content here on a weekly basis. And remember that this is not any definitive like tier list. I'm not speaking any truths in here at all. I'm just speaking how much I enjoy these characters when I play with them, except for Ronan. So don't take as anything in here say as fact. It's just something that I did for fun and how I normally feel with these characters nowadays. Some are obviously better than others, but at the end of the day, even if we're gonna talk about them seriously, we're only talking about like a question of minutes here. Uno can finish a level in like a minute, while somebody like Amy can probably finish in like maybe 2-3 minutes. It's nothing like too drastic of a difference. So don't take stuff of me saying that Rufus is weak personally, because even if he is weak, he is able to do the content just fine on his own. Very much similar to Lass and Lightwind. Even if they are weak, they are able to do events just fine. Just remember that at the end of the day, this is a game. It's not something too serious. So if you enjoy playing with any of these characters as your main, then just play with these characters and try to have fun in the game, because that's ultimately what really matters at the end of the day. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Hope you guys have a great day today. Stay awesome, stay safe. Have a great farm section today, and remember to not use the alignment list for this sort of stuff. I realized mid-through that this is a mistake because every character is in the way. It's kind of hard to tell who's who here, and it was really annoying to deal with this. But anyway, see each other next time. Peace.